South Korea scrambled its fighter jets and put its air forces on alert after Chinese and Russian aircraft entered its air defense identification zone. Moscow and Beijing are strengthening their military cooperation. Joint training flights in the Far East are focused on offensive scenarios. This coincides with increasingly tense relations between Beijing and America's allies in the region, Seoul, Tokyo, and Taipei. Similar incidents are becoming more frequent in the region, and analysts indicate they are not accidental. This was not a violation of airspace, but an entry into the South Korean identification zone. Seoul requires aircraft approaching South Korean territory to provide flight details and the pilot's intentions. 7 Russian and 2 Chinese military aircraft entered the zone. For an hour, despite attempts to establish contact, they did not respond to calls for identification. South Korea sent its own aircraft in their direction. The incident occurred just 2 days after another provocative action by the Chinese Air Force. On Sunday, one of the fighter jets taking off from a Chinese aircraft carrier locked onto a Japanese F-15 flying towards it. China's radar lock-on was a dangerous action that went beyond what was necessary for the safe flight of the aircraft, and it is extremely regrettable that such an incident occurred. We have lodged a strong protest with the Chinese side and firmly demanded that this not happen again in the future. We are responding calmly but firmly. Japan has been on a diplomatic collision course with China ever since conservative Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi, who openly supports Taiwan's sovereignty, took office. Beijing is beginning to test the reactions of Taipei's potential allies more and more strongly, including their military response procedures. Beijing should not resort to aggressive rhetoric to intimidate others or denigrate U.S. policy positions. Such behavior not only highlights its hegemonic attitude, but also exposes China's belligerent nature. Beijing is reacting harshly to the new U.S. security doctrine, which focuses significantly on the Indo-Pacific region. According to experts, China is clearly preparing for confrontation. Very often, military cooperation between China and Russia is said to be about improving the coordination of armed forces, but it is also about signaling strategic unity. Finally, it is a challenge to the security architecture that the United States represents in the Indo-Pacific region. What the West seems to be unaware of is the fact that a war is already underway, not in the form of kinetic strikes on the battlefield, but in the areas of economics, cybersecurity, and even ecology. Billions of yuan are being pumped into lobbying, marketing, and displacing Western companies. Espionage is at a level never seen before.
So you spend hours flying over China, and everybody has their aircraft Wi-Fi turned on. But what they don't realize is, and in fairness to the Wi-Fi providers, it says this is an unsecure connection, When you're flying over China, all your emails, your WhatsApps, your everything are going up from their satellite terminal on the aircraft to a satellite, a commercial satellite, that's not the internet, is being landed in a Chinese ground gateway, and everything is being intercepted.
Worse still, according to NATO planners' predictions, Beijing is coordinating its operations with Moscow. Attempts to influence the Chinese president with trips by European leaders are ineffective. What's more, it is almost certain that any strike on Taiwan will be preceded by an escalation of the situation in Eastern Europe, on the North Atlantic Alliance's eastern flank. If Xi Jinping does decide to attack Taiwan, he will first call Putin and ask him to further inflame the conflict in Europe. While there is a war going on in Ukraine, China and Russia are now testing how the United States and its main allies in Asia will react. On top of that, Europe is currently tied to China's technological leash. Most production, even European production, relies on Chinese components. Domestic industry is being displaced by goods from China, and dependence on Beijing could backfire if, in the event of a conflict, China simply cuts off the supply chains.